Well, hello. You are going to love my conversation with the president of the American Federation of Teachers. It's Randi Weingarten joining me today. So great. It begins at 32 minutes into today's show. After today's headlines and sound bites coming up, I hope that you had a good weekend. I hope you had a great Mother's Day if you're a mom or you were celebrating your mom or your wife or your ex-wife or whoever you wanted to celebrate yesterday. I hope that you were cherished and respected and felt taken care of and maybe even spoiled. Of course, you and your mom is second to mine. Happy Mother's Day to Mary Dominic, who is a big listener and fan of mine and this podcast, listens almost every day. Hi, Mom. Thank you very much for being the very best, and I'm sorry that everybody else is second to you. Thank you for being the best role model of generosity and kindness. Thank you for always supporting me and loving me, and thank you for loving nature and birds and everything natural. And of course, Mom, for making me pie and cutting my hair yourself until I was like 10, making it seem like I had a giant head. Guess I probably do. I kid the moms. I kid the competition of momming. I am sorry to those of you who Mother's Day is tough for, of course. I know it's tough if Mom is no longer with us here in all of the ways she might have been. But may her memory be a blessing, and if you hated your mom or you currently hate your mom, I realize this is a conflicting day for you, and I hope you found a way through or around it. Maybe you just called it National Cheesecake Day and celebrated that. Either way, all of the ways. Happy Mother's Day to you and yours. Okay, well, most importantly for me, Ava is back home. That's right. If you've got a college student child and they are coming back home, the semester or the year is over. Maybe your son or daughter is actually graduating from college. Congratulations to Lynn Warmke, whose vitamin N shot I used in today's subscriber email, and her son, who just graduated from Virginia Tech. That's a pretty good feeling to see your kid graduate from college, I bet, if they did have a commencement, if it wasn't canceled due to protests or something like that. Very excited to have Ava home. I drove up to Ithaca and back yesterday to get her. Saw every shade of green. It's a perfect time of spring in upstate New York. Packed the Honda CR-V tighter than any car I've ever packed in my life, I think. I think my car seat was even moved up closer to the steering wheel for those 3.5 hours. The way back just to be able to make sure I could fit her fridge and mattress pad in. But we did it. We got her home, and she's done with Ithaca, now transferring. She liked it there, but she wants to be in the mix of things, wants to be in New York City. So she's headed to the Fashion Institute of Technology to study television, digital, video, film, all of that. So we're very excited to see what Ava does next, and I'm very excited to see what you do next. Really, I don't know. I don't know that I necessarily am. I just didn't really have a segue into the news. But let's do it. Here are your headlines for Monday, the 13th of May. Nobody does it better than stand up. Recapping the news for you every day that I can here on the podcast. Tell your friends, come on over. Let's start with some news from Friday, where the United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly adopted a resolution declaring that Palestinians qualify for full member status at the United Nations, a highly symbolic move that reflects growing global solidarity with the Palestinian people and is a rebuke of Israel and the United States. The resolution was approved by a vote of 143 to 9, with 25 nations abstaining. The assembly broke into a big applause after the vote. So while it's symbolic, still a big deal and a win for the Palestinian people, who don't get many. As a matter of fact, about 300,000 people have fled southern Gaza, Rafah, in the past week. According to the UN, international officials have expressed alarm that there's nowhere safe for Gazans to go. The Israeli military ordered the evacuation of Jabaliva in northern Gaza as increased attacks there as well. The military said Hamas was trying to reassemble in the area. For Israeli and Western officials, Hamas's leader, a guy named Yava Sinvar, is in Gaza as emerged as an adversary and a deft political operator in ceasefire negotiations. Republicans accuse President Biden of criticizing Israel more harshly than Hamas, according to Politico. Senator Jim Risch of Idaho said Biden was attempting to placate voters on the far left at the expense of a close ally. And Republican criticisms matter, don't they, right? Because they are so consistent and principled. You know, the only thing they hate more than Jews is Palestinians. Sorry, but you know it's true. A Biden administration report out from the State Department said that Israel may have broken international law in Gaza, but that Israel's credible and reliable assurances mean the U.S. can keep sending weapons. The Biden administration is still waiting for Israel to show how it plans to evacuate and protect civilians in Rafah ahead of this possible invasion. And those are the headlines I've got for you from the Middle East. Let's go to Russia, where I should probably say Ukraine. Russia tried to break through Ukrainian lines in the country's north using shelling and armored columns. Ukraine says it's repelled the attacks. They are upgrading Russia, that is, munitions depot in Belarus, possibly to house nuclear weapons, according to New York Times analysis of satellite imagery. Satellite should be the name of that, by the way. I didn't misspeak. All right, what other headlines do I see here for you real quick? Oh, I thought this was a really important headline. You know, you've got to first kill white supremacy in yourself. You were raised with it. It's not to some extent your fault. You're conditioned to believe certain things in America. American schools, American culture tends to do that. So you've got to first find it within yourself to try to kill that white supremacy and fight your own bias, bigotry, and racism and sexism, etc. But if you don't do it every day, it'll just keep coming back. A Virginia school board, surprise, surprise, voted Friday to restore the names of Confederate military leaders to a high school and elementary school 4 years after the names had been removed, a reversal that some experts may be the first of its kind. Now, what do you say about that? The schools changed the names in 2020 after protests surrounding the death of George Floyd, but guess what? They're back. Unbelievable, really, or completely believable air in the United States of America. And by the way, thank you to Cassie for sending this to me, Cassie in Vegas. I hadn't seen this. A senior advisor to Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's plan, if Trump takes back the White House, to basically destroy America, privatize everything, sell everything off. This guy named Johnny McEntee is a senior advisor to it. And he's also, more importantly, Trump's director of office and personal management. Apparently, he says he likes to distribute fake money to homeless people so that they will be arrested when they spend it. Now, remember, that's what George Floyd was accused of, is passing off a fake $20 bill. And then he was assassinated, tortured, and murdered in broad daylight by a police officer who is now in jail. But that is one of the most vile things a person can do, Cassie said, certainly to homeless people. It is a really horrific thing. And I wanted to mention that here, because these are terrible, terrible people. Let's see what else. Moving on from that headline, which it's hard to do. The U.S. Senate on Thursday passed legislation to reauthorize federal aviation programs for the next 5 years and put in place new safety measures and consumer protections for passengers at a moment of intense uncertainty and disruption in the air travel system. Rudy Giuliani was suspended from his radio show. How about that? WABC is a far-right network, believe it or not, platforms people like Mark Levin and Rush Limbaugh in the past. Well, Rudy's daily talk show was canceled after he violated station policy by trying to discuss discredited claims about the legitimacy of the 2020 presidential election. What a shame. Speaking of crazy people, Marjorie Taylor Greene complained on Steve Bannon's show that Fox News wants to control what Republican voters think. Fox News wants to make sure that you guys don't have your own opinion, that you only have the opinion that Fox News tells you to have, which is hilarious. Steve Bannon, for his part, actually might be going to jail, which would be pretty amazing to see, for contempt of court. Same thing that Peter Navarro, I think, is in jail for now. That is a good possibility, and I really hope that happens, because I hate that guy, and I don't use that bad word very much. Hate, not Steve Bannon. Switzerland won that big Eurovision contest, its first victory since Celine Dion represented the country in 1988, if you're paying attention to that. What else do I have for you? Senator Robert Menendez will go on trial in Manhattan today. He's charged with taking part in an elaborate bribery scheme. Over the weekend, residents in several European countries and parts of the U.S., including the Northeast, here, my town, apparently, there was unusual sightings of northern lights, which was pretty fascinating. I missed it. I was in bed. I didn't even know that was a possible thing, much less happening. But something to do with solar, something to do with the sun. I'm not quite sure. Should I be worried about that? Oh, look how beautiful it is. We're burning! I don't know. Ahead of the Paris Olympics, concerns are growing that the World Anti-Doping Agency is failing in its mission of keeping sports free of illegal drugs. Shocking, but seriously, that has got to be hard to keep up with. Coming up this week, Maryland, Nebraska, and West Virginia will hold presidential primaries. The man who attacked Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, is expected to be sentenced on Friday. And, of course, Trump criminal trial, maybe the only one that will happen before the election, continues. And the big star witness, we're going to hear a lot about this week, Michael Cohen steps on the stand. Should be real interesting to see him in the same courtroom as Trump glaring at each other. We'll see what happens with that. Be closely following it and probably talking to experts to recap it at the end of the week. And finally, I wanted to mention the top baby names of last year have come out. The top 10 baby boy names in 2023. Are you ready? Number 10, William. 9, Lucas. 8, Henry. 7, Theodore. Really? People are naming their kid Theodore? All right. Theo is a cool name, but Theodore, I'm not a fan of. Mateo is number 6. Interesting. Elijah, James, Oliver, Noah. The number 1 baby boy name of 2023, Liam. Oh, hello, Liam. I don't love it. I guess it's British, or something. I don't know. Is it Irish? Liam. Top 10 baby girl names of 2023. Luna, Evelyn, Ava. We thought we were so original with that. Isabella, Mia. I see a lot of Mias. Amelia, love that name. Charlotte, Emma, and Olivia. Also a great name, but all these names very, very popular. And I thought that would be a great way to end the headlines for today's episode. Now let's get to those sound bites that I've got for you most days. And there's always a lot of them on the Monday show because there's a whole lot being said on Sunday, wrapping up the week, headed into the next. You've got all the Sunday shows on the networks and much more. I'll end this with some comedy, as I always try to do, but let's start with the more serious and often depressing sound bites. For the second week in a row, at least that I've been paying attention, you had Republicans on Sunday shows saying that they wouldn't necessarily accept the results of the next election, 2024 election, no matter who wins. Another truly disturbing case of normalizing this, and the disgraced former president, the candidate who could not accept his loss, and he, along with his supporters, have since made maintaining that big lie, or at minimum not challenging it, a new litmus test for their party loyalty. First, let's go to the disgraced senator from South Carolina who disgraces himself over and over. He was on Meet the Press yesterday with Kristen Welker.
Will you accept the results of the 2024 election, no matter who wins?
Yeah, I'll accept it. I think, if there's no massive cheating, I accepted 2020. Here's what I would say. President Trump is poised to win. He said last night, when it comes to Israel, I will have their back. I will give them what they need.
And then you had this dirtbag J.D. Vance. He was on ABC's This Week. And let me remind you of where he was back in 2016. Never underestimate J.D. Vance's ability to grovel and debase himself for Donald Trump, not unlike the last guy you just heard. But here he is back in 2016, the current senator from Ohio who now loves and overwhelmingly supports Donald Trump because his supporters put J.D. Vance in the United States Senate. But here he is, just a montage put together by ABC News.
I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place. He's leading our political discourse to a very negative place. If Trump is elected president, he has to be a much different president than he was a candidate. As a candidate, he was fundamentally divisive, arrogant. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
That was J.D. Vance back in 2016. Now he's...
Well, here he is now back on, this is actually State of the Union with Dana Bash, and listen to this, exactly the perfect example.
I think the fact that Donald Trump is talking about Jews in that particular context does not mean he doesn't think the same lessons apply to a whole host of American citizens.
Yeah, because he did say that any Jewish person who voted for Joe Biden should be ashamed of themselves. I want to move on.
But he's made similar comments about a lot of different groups of people, Dana. I don't think anybody could look at the presidency and the conduct of Donald Trump and say, this is a person who's somehow anti-Semitic. What? And I think whether you're Jewish or not, you should be looking at the record of Joe Biden.
He had dinner with Nick Fuentes, who is an avowed anti-Semite.
Dana, you should look at the record of Joe Biden and recognize that whether you're Jewish or not, his presidency has been a disaster for the American people.
I want to ask about...
Yeah. What do you make of him sitting down with Nick Fuentes,
who is a Nazi. What do you think about that? And Kanye West also. And also, don't forget, one of his biggest supporters went and shot up a synagogue and killed 11 Jewish people. Let's not forget that at the Tree of Life Synagogue in 2018. Don't forget that. That guy loved Donald Trump and all of his disgusting rhetoric about Jewish folks, which he has obviously maintained his entire career, including when he was the son of a real estate tycoon and then a fake one himself. Here's the Washington Post. Trump's long history of trafficking in anti-Semitic tropes. In September 2020, by the way, Trump told American Jewish leaders, "We really appreciate you. We love your country also." He said this to Americans. "We love your country," obviously referring to Israel. In 2019, he referred to Benjamin Netanyahu as your prime minister to American Republicans. What? That's just a couple of quick examples. Of course, the most popular anti-Semitic trope in politics is that Jews control things behind the scenes, often by virtue of their money and cunning, according to the Washington Post article. And Trump has also leaned way into that. He's talked about Jews as brutal negotiators. In 2020, the Washington Post, Greg Miller reported that Trump had said after speaking to Jewish leaders on the telephone that they, quote, are only in it for themselves and, quote, stick together in ethnic allegiance. He's often suggested that ethnic allegiance should extend to him because of Jewish members of his family. "You just like me because my daughter happens to be Jewish," he joked at the Republican Jewish Convention in 2015. He added in 2019, "I saw a poll that in the last election I got 25% of the Jewish vote, and I said, here I have a son-in-law and daughter who are Jewish, a beautiful grandchildren that are Jewish, have all these incredible achievements. I'm amazed, it seems to me almost automatically, that Jews vote for Democrats." Okay, just a little bit of it. Just a little bit of his history of anti-Semitism, and that is one article that I quickly searched and looked up. There's Is Donald Trump an Anti-Semite at the New Yorker, and so much more. You can look it up for yourself, or just ask one of your Jewish friends. If you don't have any, ask anybody. Okay, this idea that if they are pro-Israel, then they are pro-Jewish is the most, that to me, that is the most kind of annoying, repetitive anti-Semitic thing to say. I mean, it's not so virulently and directly in your face anti-Semitic, but it's just such a ridiculous lack of understanding and a clear admission that you don't know any Jewish Americans in your life, or you don't understand the beauty and rich texture of the Jewish religion and faith and philosophy the way that you do Christianity, or you have no curiosity about it. And that's the worst part of it of all. All right, let me climb down from the old rant box been going on here and share with you. Here is Jen Psaki. I thought this is a really good commentary. She is, because, of course, last week, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson and House Republicans introduced a new bill that would require all states to verify proof of citizenship for every voter in order to prevent non-citizens from voting in federal election, something that A, is already illegal, and B, almost never happens, and C, most importantly, has never happened had any impact on the outcome of an election. Anyway, this is the latest legislative push, a key policy for the disgraced former president who hates immigrants, uses this talking point all the time in reference to the big lie and trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election. So Jen Psaki took that on, and she slammed House Republicans over this new bill criminalizing non-citizens voting in November elections. I wanted to share that with you.
Speaker Mike Johnson and a merry gang of election-denying Republicans held a press conference on the Capitol steps. And they were introducing a bill at that press conference that criminalizes something that is already very illegal, non-citizens voting in federal elections. But more notable than some completely unnecessary legislation and the press conference accompanying it is the narrative they're trying to push.
There is currently an unprecedented and a clear and present danger to the integrity of our election system, and that is the threat of non-citizens and illegal aliens voting in our election. It's true that Democrats have expressed a desire to turn non-citizens into voters. That's what this open border has been all about.
It's the combination of a wide open border and obstruction of any effort to verify the citizenship of who votes in our elections. These things are all combined in effort to end our Republican form of government.
Great replacement theory.
Okay, every time Stephen Miller shows up at a press conference, you know it's going to be crazy. But there's a whole lot of conspiracy brain to unpack there. First, the Speaker of the House and his fellow Republicans are falsely claiming that millions of non-citizens illegally vote. Look, Republican election conspiracies are nothing new, but what makes those remarks from Johnson and co. even more outrageous is the brazen attempt to actually tie two right-wing conspiracies together, all in one with a bow. Their false claim of mass election fraud and their racist and frankly dumb replacement theory. We've talked about this on our show before. It's the once fringe but now apparently mainstream Republican dogma that Democrats and elites are purposefully bringing in migrants from third world countries in order to dilute the influence of political power of real Americans. According to Johnson and his colleagues, Joe Biden has opened the border to as many migrants as possible in order to activate them as fraudulent Democratic votes come November. That's crazy. That theory is not only false and racist and dangerous and insane, but it also crumbles under the slightest weight of the most basic questions.
Are you saying that there are currently non-U.S. citizens voting in federal elections? And if that's what you're saying, then do you have an estimate of how many?
We all know intuitively that a lot of illegals are voting in federal elections, but it's not been something that is easily provable. We don't have that number.
We know intuitively, but it's not easily provable. I mean, that's like saying, I don't know it for a fact, but I think it's true. So Mike Johnson desperately wants you to trust his vibes, basically. But what he's talking about just isn't a thing. Don't take it from me. That's according to the Brennan Center, which found that non-citizen voting is vanishingly rare. That's according to the conservative Cato Institute, which said that, quote, non-citizens don't illegally vote in detectable numbers. And I mean, this one is pretty rich, maybe my favorite. It's even according to the Hard Right Heritage Foundation, which, according to their own database, reports less than 100 cases of non-citizens illegally voting between 2002 and 2023. The Heritage Foundation, I will remind you, is also the home of the nearly 1,000-page Project 2025 plan on their website. Less than 100 cases in a period where literally hundreds of millions of votes were cast. It is just not a thing that happens at any significant level. And why would it? As I said at the top, non-citizens can't vote. That's already a crime. At best, this Republican legislation push is a solution looking for a problem. But far more alarming, it's intended to sow the seeds of doubt about our country's elections.
Even though
Donald Trump
the
lose.
2020 election was apparently the most secure,
we'll keep talking about it.
And elections at the local and state and federal level are very, very secure. There are problems. There are errors. Rarely do those problems or errors, often almost always unintentional, have any impact on the outcome of an election. But it's definitely not non-citizens voting. Good job, Jen Psaki and her producers over at MSNBC for that one. And one more bad one, I think. Trump had a big rally in Wildwood, New Jersey. If you've never been to Wildwood, you're not missing out on anything. But it is definitely Trump country. And one of those weird right-wing pro-Trump networks was there and interviewing people that were attending, including this young man who was clearly plastered. But I got to share it with you.
This is a year? 24 is the year. 24 is the year. Where are you from, man? I'm from Jersey, right here, right outside Hamilton.
Let me ask you something. As a young person, how popular is Trump amongst your generation?
Trump is just different. He's different. He's a leader. He knows what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows what he's doing. He's just special. You know what I mean? Look at the people. Everybody's here. They all love him. Everybody loves him.
He's
different.
Pop culture loves him. Everybody loves him. Let me ask you a question. What is the one thing that the Biden administration has hurt you the most? Is it tuition? Or is it rent? Is it gas? Is it food?
He's just a sleepy fuck. As a 17-year-old, I can't afford gas anymore. He's a jet. I mean, come on.
So it's the gas.
Yeah, it's the gas.
All right.
Fucking retard. We gotta get somebody serious back in office.
There you go.
Come on. Hey,
there you go. Close the border. Close the border.
Too many. Come on.
Close the border. High gas prices. These guys know. I appreciate it. Hey, we want to encourage you to go to our website. We've got some great patriots. We also have the patriots is you, you, the viewer. So
just had to take it to the end there because the way he misspoke was just so. He was real distracted by that kid he just talked to, and that he was wondering if he was still going to have a job at his Klan network. Okay, well, how about this? I like Oprah. I've often really loved Oprah, but there's one thing that she herself is admitting she got wrong. She's apologizing for contributing to what's now referred to as toxic diet culture. In a 3-hour-long Weight Watchers special, the legend and American icon, as I call her, Oprah Winfrey, apologized for contributing to that, despite in the face of weight loss journey hers. Here's NBC News' Marissa Para on Oprah, including the apology here, is about a 2-minute clip. I thought it was interesting, and the whole special sounds interesting.
We've been criticized. We've been scrutinized. We've been shamed.
Oprah Winfrey is shedding the shame around weight.
I have been a steadfast participant in this diet culture.
Her apology about contributing to the toxic diet culture, part of a 3-hour-long Weight Watchers special. A sobering moment for the icon, who for decades was the face of the weight loss journey for millions, even as she herself was shamed in print and on TV.
Pretty girl, and you're single. You must lose the weight. I'm going to.
Now pointing to that infamous moment in 1988 when she wheeled out a wagon of fat as her biggest regret.
It is amazing to me that I can't lift it, but I used to carry it around every day.
It sent a message that starving yourself with a liquid diet set a standard for people watching that I nor anybody else could uphold.
Oprah wasn't just the face of weight loss.
Who wants a taco?
She spent 10 years as a Weight Watchers board member and director. But after intense speculation surrounding her suddenly slim figure on a December red carpet, Oprah became one of the first big-name celebrities to come clean about using an unspecified weight loss drug, stepping down from the Weight Watchers board months later, now questioning the weight loss industry's future.
What's the point of a Weight Watchers now?
Do you think a special like what we saw on Thursday could have happened 20, 30 years ago?
Oh, I don't think it would have ever taken flight.
Obesity medicine physician Dr. Lori DiMattia has seen a major industry shift, as certain drugs known for treating diabetes are now part of more weight loss journeys.
Have you seen demand for weight loss drugs increase in the last couple of years?
Oh, absolutely. The volume has increased substantially.
The drugs come with uncertain long-term impacts, high costs for high demand, and criticism from use. Oprah taking the mic to say, while they're not for everyone, no one should be shamed for their choice.
Weight health is a very complex issue for everybody. It is not one size fits all.
All right, there you go. That is Oprah with her new special. And by the way, I think Eric Schlosser is out. Well, not I think, is out with Food Inc. 2, which I highly recommend in a related story. It made me think of that. Very, very important, because what's most important is what we eat and put in our body. Mostly it should be plants, I think it's fair to say. I eat my share of animals, but I've always been partial to that whole Michael Pollan theory. Eat food. Not much, mostly plants. All right, now let's get to the jokes, some comedy, some laughs to wrap up this always scary, sobering news segment. It's the Weekend Update, boys. Colin Jost, Michael Che, Saturday Night Live this weekend.
This week in court, Stormy Daniels gave a detailed description of sex with Donald Trump, which was so disgusting even the sky turned green.
Shot of the Northern Lights.
Stormy Daniels, seen here as drawn by the creator of Kathy, was accused by Trump's lawyers of lying about their affair for profit, which would make her the only person to do business with Trump and make money. It's also been implied that Stormy Daniels got into bed with Trump and let him do whatever he wanted just to advance her career. You know, like every Republican.
Oh, Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio.
He testified that during their encounter, Donald Trump did not wear a condom. He tried to put one on, but he was blocked by his tie.
It's a long tie.
Stormy Daniels testified in Donald Trump's hush money trial and was asked to list some of the movies that she's worked on. After she finished, the judge banged the gavel and open oral arguments were the names of the movies. Oh.
Yeah, they just have titles of the movies. The judge banged the gavel, opened oral arguments, and after she finished.
Man, that was a good joke. Breaks my heart, Colin. Breaks my heart.
Before her testimony, Stormy Daniels agreed not to describe Trump's genitalia in court after she was offered hush money by the jury. But then Florida Senator Rick Scott appeared in court to support Trump, so in a way, we did get to see what Trump's penis would look like.
Rick Scott is a bald, freakishly bald man. Looks a little like me.
Israeli officials are reportedly furious after the U.S. withheld a shipment of weapons. But yes, sometimes people get angry at their intervention. All right, that was...
I like it.
President Biden on Tuesday issued a call to fight hate against anti-Semitism, saying There is no place for it in America. But on the other hand, Collins Country Club.
It's a nice place.
Oh.
At a White House ceremony honoring the WNBA champion Las Vegas Aces, President Biden mistakenly called player Candace Parker one of the greatest all-time coaches. Worse, he thought this woman was their point guard.
A picture of Kamala Harris.
During a ceremony in Russia, Vladimir Putin was sworn in for his 5th term as president by placing his hand on the Russian Constitution, which is just a label on a bottle of vodka. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who revealed this week that he had a parasitic brainworm, posted on X, "I offered to eat 5 more brainworms and still beat President Trump and President Biden in a debate," which is such an insane thing to probably be right about.
All right, there they go. Colin Jost, Michael Che. Pretty good job. And those are the laughs I've got for you from the weekend before we get to my guest. Right now, it's Randi Weingarten. Oh, what a big get. Very excited to have her joining me. I've interviewed Randi several times, and I've also been in the room to watch her speak at several events, including ones that I was speaking at a few years back, the National Gala for the American Federation of Teachers. They had me there. Of course, my friend Andrew Spar had me down at the Florida Education Association. She mentions Andrew in this conversation, as a matter of fact. She is the president of the 1.7 million member AFT, which represents teachers, paraprofessionals, and school-related personnel, higher education faculty, staff, nurses, and other healthcare professionals, local, state, and federal government employees, early childhood educators. Before that, she was president of the United Federation of Teachers for 11 years. And she had a whole bunch of other jobs, including teacher herself. She's an advocate, an activist, a leader, a really inspiring, transformative person to be around and watch speak. I love Randi. I love this conversation. She joined me to talk about this campaign that AFT and this nonprofit First Book are working together to fight back against all the book banning efforts in the U.S., which is crazy to say. But last week, in 5 events across the country, AFT celebrated the unprecedented milestone of giving out more than 10 million brand new free books to schools, community centers, faith-based institutions, and union halls over the last decade to help children discover the joy of reading and, of course, fight back against these book bans that are even an effort in my school. We talked about that and so much more. Go follow Randi on Twitter. Let her know that you heard her here on the show. That'll be a big deal. Support the AFT, support teachers, get involved locally. Every day here on Stand Up, I try to talk to the smartest people I can about the most important issues facing us all, most of us all. And I got a great one for you right now. Let's do it with Randi Weingarten, the legend. I get so lucky. Madam President, I don't know exactly what to call you. Thank you so much for joining me.
How about Randi?
Okay, if you say so. I do whatever you tell me to do in general. I thought to argue with you one time, but I've seen you argue, and you were recently on Capitol Hill being attacked by Republicans.
Yeah.
I thought you handled that pretty damn good as always.
Thank you. Look, it's when you're on the stand for 3 hours and they don't want to ask you a question because they know that you have the receipts about what you exactly did.
Yeah.
I think it was pretty hard for them. That hearing was like disinformation 101, as opposed to what do you do to actually help kids learn. I'd spent hours being grilled by them if that's what they were into, but all they wanted to do was gotcha, and I don't think they did.
Who knows best how teachers learn? What do you think is the answer to that?
How teachers learn or how kids learn?
Oh, shit. I screwed that line up.
No problem. Look, Pete, you are so good at so many things, and which is why I'm so glad to be with you. I think that actually teachers and kids learn in some similar ways, which is why teachers like being with kids. I think that you learn by inquiry and curiosity and engagement and wanting to be there. And when you can create, this is part of the reason why we often say, if you create a safe and welcoming environment, if you deal with Maslow's needs, then you're going to deal with Bloom's needs. We often say as educators, Maslow trumps Bloom any day of the week. Part of it is, how do we make sure our kids feel safe and welcoming? And frankly, I would say the same thing for teachers. Teachers are going to do, teachers always try to grapple with everything, but they're going to do so much better if they feel really supported, as opposed to tense that, oh my God, they're going to say something and somebody's going to call them on the carpet. And a kid in a classroom can feel when a teacher has a bad day or a teacher is tense or something at home is going on. We may have more years than our kids, but the process of learning is a fertile, iterative process of connecting the dots. And so teachers there's two things that I used to say a lot, or I used to learn a lot as a teacher. Number one, you meet people where they are, including you meet your kids where they are, you meet others where they are. And number two, it's not what's said, it's what's heard.
So well said, as always. It just infuriates me as the son of a public school teacher. My mom, of course, I think was in the Syracuse City School District for 25 years. But more importantly, just as a curious person, I don't go and tell airline mechanics how to fix the plane and so on and so forth. The arrogance of adults who even don't have kids, or just because they do have kids, thinking they can tell teachers how to teach European history, geometry, or anything else. I don't know how to deal with those folks, Randy. You do it better than I do. But what do you say to all these people who want to tell teachers how to do their job? Because my opinion is if we told any of them how to do their job, they'd be outraged, and rightfully so. I
think the answer, I can give a smart-ass comment in response, but I think the answer is more, can I say that on radio or TV or whatever?
This is my show, and you can say anything you want, but it's usually my job to make those smart-ass responses. I'm not sure how effective they are, but what's your more mature response, professional?
So what I would say is, what I used to say is, look, everybody went to school. So there's a sense of familiarity with what it means to be in school. And frankly, parents really care about their kids. So in some ways, unlike other professions, they feel very strongly, and we want them to feel very strongly about schooling. So that's why I don't go for the kind of quick and easy answer. What I would say instead is, the key for us is that we have to make communities and parents our partners and create enough of a trusting environment that we're really partners with parents. And when that happens, you don't see the critiques that are happening. Frankly, you live in the school district in which I went to, in which I was taught. And it saddens me to no end to see the kind of culture wars going on in Rockland County, in Congers, in Clarkstown, because the teachers there have always been people who care deeply about kids. And I got a tremendous education and did lots of different things that today would be questioned by the culture wars. I had a humanities class when I was in Clarkstown, and we went to see Broadway plays. And you look at some of the issues that are being raised. So I think you've got to have a trusting environment. And then we have to be able to deal with the fact that a bunch of people are just trying to weaponize all sorts of anxiety. Yes. Because guess what? And this is where maybe the punchline is. They are afraid of knowledge. They're afraid of kids critically thinking. And I don't think this is parents. I think this is extremists who are so afraid of kids thinking and thinking outside of maybe the box that these folks are afraid of. I think that's what's really going on.
I think I might disagree. I'll try, which is parents And Americans have always been afraid of certain things being taught. They've wanted to teach those things themselves. For example, sex education has always been divisive in America, but we have the data on how effective it is. But now we do have parents and obviously teachers, and granted it comes from these insidious campaigns built on lies, that don't want history and English taught in our schools because it makes, especially the white families, their kids uncomfortable, which is always shocking to me because learning terrible things about our past is uncomfortable. But what do you say to the supposition that parents don't want these things being taught? Didn't Florida outlaw it for colleges even?
Let's put it this way. There's always been fault lines in terms of education, and there's always been a fear of knowledge. And those fault lines run deep, not only in American history, but European history, African history. So let's not take all of it on.
Fair enough.
There's a whole long litany that we can take on. This is my social studies teacher hat about authoritarians and propaganda and dehumanization. Let's remember, in America, there was a question about the teaching of evolution, and the whole Scopes trial was about that about 100 years ago. And frankly, that teacher was an AFT member. And so there's an issue about, we believe, two things. One, you have to teach honest history. Wherever it goes, you have to teach the truth. And there is a truth about certain things. There's also opinion, but you have to teach the truth. And you also have to teach kids how to critically think. Number two, big bucket, number two, which is we have to meet kids where they are, which means that when issues around sexuality or around mental health come up, teachers want to meet kids' needs and want to meet families' needs. And so that's why number three, this issue about trust becomes really important, because of course there's discomfort in 1 and 2. America, I would argue, and again, I'm an AP Gov teacher, I would argue that teaching the truth may be uncomfortable about slavery, but see where the country got to. Teaching the struggle, teaching the truth also starts teaching what America did about it. Yes, it didn't do it about it quickly enough, but there is a success story in teaching the struggle. But is it uncomfortable? Virtually everything in social studies is uncomfortable.
I don't understand.
I have one more thing to say, which is also teaching relationship building and perseverance, which is really important to teach for kids. I was trying to think of the other R word I was looking for. But if you teach perseverance, if you teach conflict resolution, we're going to teach kids a lot more about being prepared for life. And so when somebody says, don't teach conflict, we're really doing a huge disservice to our kids, because they have to learn how to problem solve and how to deal with conflict and deal with adversity. So that's why this new cultural war that started post-COVID is all about the division and polarization, and doesn't have much to do with, it's made lives harder for kids. It's made lives harder for families. It's made lives harder for teachers, but it is not about education. It's about creating fear and division.
I would love to know how you define, and we're getting to this amazing campaign that you guys are doing, I promise you, but next question, but because it all ties in, obviously you're giving away books and it's so important, but how do you define this new culture war, this post-COVID Trump related? How do you see it? Because you're absolutely right. I've been living in this town for almost 16 years, and I did not see this divisiveness in this town. It is really disagreeable and political as this town is. You're from here. I'm sure even when you were younger, there were controversies here, but it wasn't like this. This was absolutely as a result of, as you just put the time frame out. How would you describe this new culture war? What's behind it?
So first off, let me just say, for me personally, it's so painful to see what's happening in Clarkstown. My sister got an amazing education at Clarkstown South. I got an amazing education at Clarkstown North. And I was pressed and I was taught, and I did lots of things that frankly, and this was in the 70s. And frankly, when I look at some of what I'm hearing today, it's shocking to me.
Yes.
And I was a closeted gay person in the 70s. I was closeted and fearful. And I was a student government president and all sorts of things. And I would say that my educators and my friends, it was an amazing circle of love, and we pushed each other and we had fun, and so it is.
And how did you turn out?
Look, but in the whole watching it right now, Pete, I think, and I know that you and our union are supporting a group of candidates, and I hope that group of candidates prevails, because it's about common sense and it's about decency. And this is what I'll tell you about the rest of the country. Last November, 80% of the races that we were involved in last November, which was lots of school board races around the country, when we started really talking to parents and communities about pro-public education versus the polarization, 80% of the pro-public education candidates won. We tried to take down the volume, and we tried to say, stop vilifying the very people who want kids to be successful. And so, but what I'm saying is, I think it goes back to post-COVID, post-Biden being elected. You saw it. Chris Rufo and others who are acolytes of Betsy DeVos, they created things like Moms for Liberty. I love in Florida we have Moms for Libra, Moms for Books. But they created all these different entities who just use fear and division to divide. But what I'm seeing around the country is that when you really talk to people about what kids need, what's happening is that the pro-public education forces are overwhelmingly winning back because people want hope for their kids, not fear.
I do just want to say, just to add to it, it's less about division and fear. It's always there. Obviously, that's the conclusion of it. But just to be clear, and I know you know this, but people listening, it's not their interpretation of things. It's not their violent and threatening rhetoric and their doxing and their anonymous calls to child protection services to silence people. It's not the fascism. It's that they go into the public on Facebook and at Board of Education meetings. And this is not only in my school, obviously, it's everywhere. And they say things are happening or are being taught that aren't. They are saying that things are happening that aren't. And it's scary for parents and teachers who are looking around going, that's not happening in this school, in this building. They just make up things. They make that our board pass a law that New York State passed. And it scares parents, Randy, and it animates parents and it motivates them. But just to be clear, they say things that are happening that are not happening.
Yeah, look, it is the fear. I'm not saying that there's not extremists that are driving this. There are. And extremism is replete with lies and division and fear and all of that. What I'm saying is that what I'm seeing this year, this past 2 years in particular, is that the more teachers have done their magic in terms of trying to make a difference in the lives of kids, the more we have tried to recreate relationships and do the kinds of strategies that is part of the AFT's Real Solution campaign and NICET's campaigns and whatever, one which we're about to talk about, which is, as others ban books, we give books out.
Right.
The more we actually meet the needs of kids, and deal with the huge anxiety. The more we take cell phones away from kids during school, and the more we really take on the social media companies who are really doing this, what's happening is it's recreating trust. But let me just be clear. People like Betsy DeVos, people like Jeff Yass, people like Chris Rufo, people like Corey DeAngelis, they want this fear because what their end goal is, and Rufo has said it, their end goal is to balkanize and fractionalize public education. So public education isn't there. He said it. He said that to create universal vouchers, you create universal public school distrust. And so that is the core of what they're doing. They want to undermine society. They want to create chaos. It's similar to what Trump does. They want to create fear. They want to say, oh my God, everything is so bad. You got to vote for the autocrat to save it. That's what they want to do. Right. And if they don't create fear, the other thing they want to do is with the bullying and the harassment and whatever, they want people to say, oh, I can't get involved. I don't want to get involved. Apathy is the tool of the autocrat. Fear is the tool of the autocrat. Hope is the tool of the educator. Hope is the tool of society. Education is the tool of society. So it's a race, Pete. It's a race between fear and hope. And in what we're doing in giving out books, it is about opening up literacy. It is about saying we're bringing parents and kids together. We've had over 300 book events nationally throughout the last 2 years. This weekend, we're giving out our 10th million book. I'm not talking about book publisher. I'm talking about the American AFT, the American Federation of Teachers, the union of nurses and educators and public employees, that we've said to spark the joy of knowledge, the joy of literacy. Let's make sure kids have diverse titles in front of them, kids and their parents at home in front of them. And let's make sure we spark the joy of learning.
Let's just focus on that for one more moment. It's such a really important campaign. They're banning books. You are giving out millions of books, 10 million brand new free books at schools. I'm sure they're all woke books, Randi. I'm sure it's all wokeness that you're putting out there. Why is reading and these books
You mean classics like The Diary of Anne Frank?
Yeah.
I mean stories about Ruby Bridges, the chapter books like the Disney books, like Star Trek. Really, these are books that kids resonate to and that families resonate to. And we're doing something really countercultural. Let me whisper this to you.
Yeah.
We're having these events where we invite whole families to come with their kids so that they see and have bags of books that they can take home so that they have home libraries. And guess what? They take whatever books they want. They have choices.
It's everything. It is everything. Even with everything digital, books are still everything, because raising my daughters, I was told by a mentor, a teacher of mine, principal of a very prestigious school in Manhattan. And he said, I said, I'm having a daughter. What's your advice? He said, surround her with books. Yeah. And I did. And she is still reading. Both my daughters will lie in the sun and read a good book and then say, Dad, my book is almost over. Can you make sure I have another one? Whether I had to drive in the library or order the book, we did. Why are they still so important to all different kinds of kids?
So, Pete, one of the reasons that we're doing so much of this, and look, this is the dues that our members give us. We have this partnership with First Book, so we get books much cheaper than what you would do in a bookstore. But one of our first events was in Appalachia, McDowell County, West Virginia. And I was giving books out, and there was an 8-year-old boy, and I leaned down. Now, I'm short, but he was shorter than me. So I leaned down, and I give him this book, and he says, "This is going in my home library." With that kind of, this is 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. And I said, wow. I said, what is this? What other books do you have in your home library? And he said, this is my first. And teachers in classroom libraries, so there is something, even in this digital age, I know about me, I'm very tactile. I like having a book. And what I love about what we've done here is that this is not just national AFT. This is not just Randy. This is not just your friend, Andrew Spar from Florida.
Legend.
This is more than 700 AFT chapters in 41 states and 4 U.S. territories have been part of our Reading Opens the World book giveaways. That means that this is something that people see as important for communities all across America. And tomorrow, on Saturday when we do this book giveaway to honor the 10th million book we're giving away, we're doing it in 5 places. We're doing it in Texas, in Illinois, in Florida, in Ohio, and in New York, all at the same time. Because we know reading opens the world, but what we also know is by doing this in community, it is the opposite of what you're seeing in your school, your schools. It is bringing people together, bringing people who don't agree on everything together about knowledge, about our kids' success, about our kids' future, and that starts with reading. So they may want to smear, and they may want to slime, and they may want to ban, but what we're doing is we are being the educators who bring hope and light and reading and books.
You gave me a great idea. I think our campaign for our board members, who are all teachers, by the way, and women, we should gather up the books we have in our homes and give them away as a part of a way to bring attention to exactly this campaign. Randy, this fight has always been hard. It's never been easy. I've wanted to quit. I've gotten scared for myself, my family, but your voice is always in my head. It's always there, inspiring me and telling me to keep on going. I am so grateful to see you today and to have you in my life. Thank you. Keep up the great work.
You too, Pete. Keep hope alive.
And go check out the links to everything AFT First Book, 10 million books in today's show links. All right, there you go, Randi Weingarten. Go tweet her right now. Please go over to Twitter and ping her and AFT at AFT and support that cause and all of the work that they do, and the teachers in your district, in the school board. Get involved and be a part of it. Be the change you want to see in the world. Our election is May 21st. It's going to be close. And I don't know how you can help me support mine here locally, but I appreciate all of your rhetoric and inspiration and everything that you say about my work locally. I hope that you are getting involved as well. All right, John Carroll taking us out as he does every day, and I'll talk to you right here tomorrow on Stand Up. Follow me on all the social media, rating and review on Spotify, iTunes, and of course subscribe if you haven't already. And you can always pay more. Patreon.com/Pete Dominic.
Keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well